Welcome to History of the Week, and it is November.
No. Yep.
It is November 11th,
Yep.
and we are discussing History of the Week. This is Will.
Hi.
I'm Mike.
Mike.
And this is our ever-evolving studio. Look, we have a globe now. So if we ever get confused as to where we are in history, then Will's going to get up and grab that globe, and we'll use it.
Let's see if I can... Got the world in my hand.
Lovely.
Nice imagery.
So we're slowly, the studio is evolving.
Evolving.
Stick with us.
We'll get more lighting.
Sure.
Maybe get a map.
Yeah.
A little stack with like armor or something.
All
I could
sorts
bring a helmet, put it on the globe like it's got a hat.
all sorts of things.
If you guys have stuff to send us stuff.
Sure, I'll take stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Will's got an hour to explain this to me. Oh, I'll wait till I'll explain it a little more. So last week we were discussing, I forget now, the gunpowder plot. Any things from last week that we need to address?
We did not have any actuallys. I think we hammered that home because we did a very small event and we just kind of talked about what it was about. I think the one thing I really, Carolyn Silverberg brought up was she was actually in England during Bonfire Night is what they call it, and they celebrated that on the 5th of November.
Huh? And
that was a holiday that came out of this as a celebration, not of Guy Fawkes, but of the fact that he failed. So that's what Bonfire Night was. I should have gone into that a little more, was as another long-term effect of this day, they still have a yearly celebration of like, haha, you suck.
Don't top of the government.
Don't try to blow up Parliament. That's just a that we did actually have somebody try that once here in the 80s. It was maybe the 70s. It was a lady who was a socialist, and she did like $1 million in damage by setting off a bomb when nobody was around, and she spent like 20 years in prison for that, which good. Yeah. I think Clinton pardoned her, or commuted the rest of her sentence, something like that. Well, I got to do some more research.
We'll look into that. Maybe that day will pop up. But right now we're moving to this side of the pond.
Yep.
And a little bit south.
A little south
of the pond.
We haven't been in the south.
No, we've not. No. Where will this be proper?
This actually takes place in modern Mexico City.
Modern Mexico City. All right.
At the time, it was called Tenochtitlan.
Sorry now.
Awesome name.
Will has 1 hour to explain to me the day that Cortez met Montezuma.
That's right. So, as always, we've got to explain what's going on.
Yes.
Where we're coming from, where we go to. So this meeting is between two, nowadays, very famous men. There's Hernando Cortez is sometimes what he's called. I had him called when I was a kid. Hernando Cortez, but apparently that's not correct.
Okay.
I don't know the difference between Hernan and Hernando. It's maybe the difference between Frank and Francis kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's just a little slight difference. But Hernan, I think, is the more hoity-toity. Sounds to me more formal. If you have an O at the end, is a little...
But regardless, they call him Cortez.
They call him Cortez. And that's never different. That's never different. Probably the most famous thing that he's done recently was in Pirates of the Caribbean, the movie. The gold they had was Aztec gold.
Yeah.
To stem the slaughter of his armies. And it was, plunder. It's like blood money.
Sure.
And that's going to actually enter into our story. Not that there's no curse, although there is a thing called Montezuma's Revenge.
It's a different thing.
Which means something totally different.
Yeah.
There's a few things that are called Montezuma's Revenge.
I feel like that one's also slightly racist.
I think it is.
We should also note that the Pirates of the Caribbean, not historically accurate.
Not historically accurate at all. There were pirates.
Sure.
And they were in the Caribbean.
Caribbean?
Yes. I think so.
Discuss.
Machination.
Oh, boy.
Discuss.
All right, so, where were we?
Oh, so, Montezuma meets Cortez. Now, Hernan Cortez is a lesser nobleman in Spain. Meaning he doesn't have a lot of options in his life. At this time, you're kind of limited where you can go and what you can do in the social hierarchy by how rich your daddy was. Kind of familiar to today's world.
Yes.
Minus any inkling of a little bit of capitalism in there. Because he wants more, right? He's a lesser noble. He can't really achieve anything greater. There's not a huge war for him to fight right now. The last big war in Spain was they fought the Muslims, the Moors, in Spain.
Okay.
And they had this thing called the Reconquista, which was they made all of Spain Spanish.
Oh.
At the time, until
They call it the Reconquista?
the Reconquista, because it had been conquered halfway by the Moorish armies. And we actually talked about them because these guys conquered Spain all the way up to France and then started coming over into France.
Ah.
And Charlemagne's grandfather, Charles the Hammer, stopped that. And then they kind of stayed in Spain. So the Moors had controlled a big chunk of Spain. And in some places, the Christian Spanish and the Muslim Moors got along. They lived in harmony because they'd been there for 500, 600, 700 years at this point.
That's usually the way with most people, by the way.
You push them all together, they just get used to it.
All right, so this starts in Spain anyway.
But
so Cortez is in Spain.
He's in Spain, and there's no wars to fight, and that's kind of how you move up in noble culture in Europe. You kill people, and you take their stuff. It's not nice, but that's what happened.
Aren't you glad you just have to go to college nowadays, kids?
Right? Find a trade, maybe, something. You can move up, work hard, and other things. There's a lot of factors. But so he's stuck. He can't fight. But there's this new world to go and explore. The Europeans had not yet really done much in the Western Hemisphere.
Yes.
So they've started moving there. Columbus went there in 1492.
According to the poem.
According to the poem, sailed the ocean blue. Blah blah blah. Caused a genocide of 3 million people over the course of 10 years.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. But, he showed up and the Taino population was about 3 million people. When he was done, there were about 3,000 people. Just on a few islands.
We'll discuss this later.
That's a different conversation. We deliberately didn't talk about that one because we're going to talk about this one.
Yeah, okay. So that was like 28 years, still within...
It was fairly recent.
Each other's lifetime. Did
Yes.
Cortez and Columbus have...
I don't think they ever met, but he knew he was. And Columbus he's an Italian. He's not a Spaniard.
Right.
But he was funded by the Spanish crown.
Right.
There was Ferdinand and Isabella, and they were this power couple. They were co-rulers.
Oh.
And they are important to this because they give Cortez permission to go and do stuff.
There's one degree of separation between the two then. Did Cortez work with Ferdinand and Isabella?
Yes. So yeah.
And also, amazing that two people can rule when one of them is a bull.
Isabel.
No, Ferdinand, the bull.
Oh, Ferdinand the bull. Oh, sorry, I thought you said is a bull.
Is a bull.
Was a bull. Ferdinand
that's a bad pun.
I thought that's what you were doing.
Ferdinand the bull is just a bad reference. Both of which are not true.
Both of which are not true. It's neither a bull, and it is Isabel.
To our knowledge. We don't know.
Because we weren't there. It could have been a bull.
Very likely, we believe Spain in the early 1500s.
You know what? Maybe that's why they fight bulls. Is a remembrance of Ferdinand the bull, the king, and they fought him.
Do you remember when our country was ruled by bulls?
It was terrible. We had all this grazing land. Everyone had to move. No cities. The source of power was...
A bull shouldn't be in charge of things.
We'd ask what he wanted to do. He grunted and ran at us. We didn't know what was going on.
Snort.
Reading bull sign. It was horrible.
Bull.
2 stomps for... Yes, your highness.
Well, that is enough bull for right now.
Bull for right now.
We'll get to the rest later.
Ferdinand and Isabella run the country, 2 halves of Spain, basically. And they've united the country by being together. During, I think, the beginning of their reign is when the Reconquista really got finished, or it might have been just before. And that was when the Spanish drove the Moors back into North Africa after hundreds of years of not really being able to do that. And now Spain's this unified thing. Well, they want more, so they're expanding.
Yeah.
They have...
Sounds like the Moors.
Yes.
Always wanted more.
Always wanted more.
Oh, it's too many puns within...
Stop.
We're not even in 10 minutes.
Stop. Right. They were the Moors, now they're the less.
They're less.
There's less. They have less. That's not. Okay. Thanks to Crystal Coffee again. Well, more to me, because I bought the coffee. But thank you to them making good coffee. Sponsor us. Donate to Paul's Pantry.
They get to be a sponsor.
Nobody sponsors us. And just so everyone knows, any sponsorships, donations, etc., that all goes to Paul's Pantry, local in Green Bay, helping the homeless and less fortunate community within our community. So that's what we should all be striving to do. So, somebody who didn't do that was Hernan Cortez. He wanted more. He was a nobleman, so he had land, and he could have just sat back and been like, this is fine.
Oh.
But he wanted more. And he sees that there are these explorers that are starting to get kind of a dispensation from the royals to go claim land for Spain. All of Europe has kings and queens and counts and dukes, and it's controlled. They can't expand that way. They can't expand south because all the Moors went there, and they're staying there, and they refuse. They're like, okay, well, we're back home now, and you took our home that we took from you.
And Spain is stuck at the end of Europe there.
It's kind of stuck at the end.
But much water around it.
Yep, they don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
They can't go north. There's the Pyrenees, and then there's France, and France is very strong at this time.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, we have a navy. We can't go into the Mediterranean that's filled with Italians and all of the Islamic kingdoms that are all vying for power and trade. So we don't want to do that. Well, let's go the other way. So they head west.
There we go.
And they've recently learned, they didn't discover it, other people are already there, but for them this was new, that there's all this land there, and they think, well, it's there, and there's no Christians there, just take it. And
Christians.
That's
so
a very
no
key, that actually is true, is what they claimed. So according to, they called it the Bull of Inter Caetera. So another bull.
B-U-L-L?
B-U-L-L, a bull, a papal bull. It was a kind of a law passed down by the Pope that basically states...
Papal bull.
The important...
It's a bit on the nose there.
Maybe that's where the term comes
from.
Because what this does is it says that Christians have the right to basically go wherever there aren't Christians and claim land.
Oh.
And it does not matter who else is there because they're heathens, they're pagans, and they should, and it literally says within this bull, those rulers should be overthrown.
Wow.
The people should be re-educated, and basically anybody who stands against that gets put to the sword. And there was this big question within these supposedly religious men who brought missionaries with them as they were murdering people. They're like, can we do this? And the word from the Vatican was yes. You most assuredly can. There is no penalty for you killing an unbaptized person at all.
When did this happen?
And that happened, let's find out for certain, because there were a few bulls that were passed during this time, but that was in like 1455, I think was the first one was passed, and then there was multiple other treaties that were pushed after that. 1493 was a big one. I think that was actually when the Inter Caetera was passed, and that was basically to answer the question of, is it okay that Columbus's soldiers are killing all of these people? Because he had a priest with him. And this priest was like, you can't just kill people.
Right.
And it wasn't just killing. They were raping them. They were taking their everything. They were killing children and defenseless people. They're just killing kind of willy-nilly.
But that's what happens when you say you can kill people who are
so
your religion.
Well, and that's what happened. So what it originally started, it was, this happens. These people are killing all these people. This priest says, this is not okay. Brings that back to Europe, and the Pope has a meeting about it, and all of the heads of the church go, no, it's fine. So from then on, because in 1492, this guy was there.
Yeah.
He was there when Columbus landed, and he said, this is an issue.
Yeah.
There's all this chaos going on. These people are largely peaceful. These aren't like blood sacrificing, baby eating. The Taino were relatively peaceful. And they had a society, and they had their own laws and their own rules. And the Spanish showed up, built a fort, and just said, well, we want all your stuff. Give us all your gold. And they didn't really care so much about the gold. They thought it was a pretty ornament, but that wasn't their system. That wasn't what really mattered to them. It's more important to have food and water and shelter. These are trinkets. The Spanish were like, give us the trinkets. And then just started killing people eventually. When Columbus left, he left his soldiers in charge, and they went crazy and just started doing whatever they wanted. Taking women. That, of course, if you start taking people's women, you're going to make those people very angry. They rose up. The soldiers put them down savagely, repeatedly, and then oppressed them afterward. And this priest was there, was like, this isn't okay.
It
Objectively.
seems awfully convenient for the Pope to decide who gets to be
And
a person.
All the kings stepped in line, and all of the and it wasn't all, because we had men like this priest, and his name was Antonio de Montesinos, and Antonio, and this guy spent the rest of his life saying this isn't okay, even after the Pope said it was fine. This is not. It doesn't matter who these people are. Going around killing people is not acceptable. This isn't war. This isn't us defending ourselves. This is slaughter of a people. And we're just killing them.
Yeah.
And that's not okay. And a lot of priests, entire orders of priesthoods were like, yeah, we're on board. We agree. The Franciscan order, which is always typically let's just not be a jerk.
Yeah.
That's kind of like their main thing.
But it's really hard to scream pacifism.
Yes. Right. Exactly.
Stop fighting! Right.
You're right. And they have no power, because their bosses are all the bishops. They've got land, they've got wealth, they've got power. They were called princes of the church for a reason, because they owned as much land as lords and nobles, and sometimes kings. And the Pope is saying, "Yep, totally cool." They don't, and they literally said they don't count as people.
What Pope is this?
Oh, I gotta get right.
I gotta look up this Pope.
I gotta look up this Pope. That was horrible.
I'm a little disturbed by this.
I have this page pulled up specifically.
This feels like new information to me about this whole.
It was issued by Pope Alexander VI on May 4th, 1493. It was the Inter Cetera.
The 6th. Did he have a name beyond Alexander the 6th?
He had the popes, when they become a pope, they change their name to whatever it is. I do not have his specific.
That's fine. I'll look into him
We
later.
can look him up more, though. But yes.
I don't care for this fellow.
I do not care for this fellow at all. Well, and this was kind of common practice.
Sure,
Yes.
but it comes from the top down.
But it comes from the top down. And then, of course, all the kings are like, yeah, this is great.
This sounds really convenient
The
for
guy
us.
who knows God told us it's okay for our immortal souls to just slaughter all these people.
Yikes.
And this has been going on for hundreds of years when fighting the Muslims.
Sure.
So they just said, well, if it's good for the Muslims, it's good for everybody else. We'll just kill them all, and God doesn't care.
Good thing we picked the right religion.
Exactly. Yep. And that's how they justify all of this. So Hernan Cortez is a very devout Christian who subscribes to the pacifism is useless side of Christianity. He is not a Montesino type guy where he's like, oh yeah, let's be nice to them. He wants power and wealth, and those two things go together usually.
They sure do.
You can't necessarily climb the social ladder if you have money. So he gets permission to go and have an exploration, was what they called that. There's a specific word for it. I should have written that down.
That sounds nicer than a genocide.
That's exactly. And they called it like an expedition.
Yes.
And you were given charter to go on an expedition. You could gather soldiers, because normally, if you're not the king or a really powerful noble, you're not supposed to gather soldiers. That makes kings nervous.
Oh, sure.
So, why do you have an army of 10,000 men?
We're just exploring.
Just exploring.
Just doing some exploring.
So, what was very common for these lesser nobles who now had no war, and this is a great thing for kings to do, is they take these guys who've been raised from birth to be warriors and send them away.
Good. We've killed these killing machines. Get them out of my face.
Yes, and that was the origins of like chivalry. You have to have a code, because otherwise you guys are a bunch of murder machines.
Yeah.
And you just run around and beat the crud out of each other and stab things. And if you get bored,
don't get us wrong, we want these murder machines.
Right, we want these murder machines just working for us.
I feel like we're gonna have the same problem with robots soon. But
yes,
go on.
yes, right. But at least you can program them.
Sure.
Just like you could program knights to be chivalrous, and then they'll never genocide.
Yeah, that worked.
Did genocide all the time.
Oh boy.
So they serve a double purpose. You get the more potentially troublesome guys who they got enough money, enough land, and enough training to do some damage.
Yeah.
And maybe make your neighbors angry, cause some chaos. Some of them became robber knights and robber kings. They're little bandit kings where they kind of, I'm king of my own little land and I do what I want and nobody tell me what to do. So the king is Isabella and Ferdinand. She's a good whatever. They were like, okay, yeah, we know there's stuff over there. We'll get rid of some of the troublemakers, potential troublemakers, and give them a chance to go do something else.
Yeah.
So they've already got kind of a fortress city set up in Cuba.
Who does?
The Spanish.
Spanish.
Spanish have started to settle in the islands a lot people.
Yeah, okay.
They haven't really delved much into mainland. They've got some.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it's like the coast.
The islands are nice.
The islands are nice, and it's a lot easier to maintain the population when they can't really go anywhere.
Sure. Yeah.
And you can easily defend your surroundings because you can see everything coming. So that's how they set it. So there's this governor. His name is Diego Velasquez de Cuellar, it's double L. And he is the governor of Cuba. And he and Cortez do not like each other. They have a feud that goes back to Spain, where they butted heads and they have an argument, and they don't really like each other at all. Well, Cortez shows up with his expedition. He's like, I've been sent from Spain to do stuff for Spain, and I get to do stuff for... I don't know why he's English, but he gets to do stuff for Spain. So he goes there, and he's ready, gets all his guys together. He's got like 600 men, and these are not peasants with pitchforks. These are conquistadors. This is a new brand of professional soldier.
Yeah.
They wear steel breastplate, steel helmet. They have a pike for field fighting, a sword. They started using the arquebus, which is the early musket, or a crossbow. They are trained. These guys are professional soldiers. They are good at killing. Not really much else.
Okay.
But this is what they've trained for. So these are like a lot like the medieval knight. They also have cavalry.
They brought horses along with them?
They brought horses on ships.
Oy.
Horses don't exist in America at this time. They're not there. They're not horses. There's no cavalry forces in America. So the Spanish are importing their horses, and this gives them a huge tactical advantage.
Sure.
You're up higher, you're on this big animal, and these are war horses. These are not like light scouting horses.
If there are no other horses.
Exactly.
You got a pony.
You got a pony. You're a huge... Ask the Mongols. They rode ponies, and they conquered all of Asia almost. So
all you need is 2 more legs than you normally have.
Yep. And you can just do hands-free stuff.
Sure.
So, I don't have to look where I'm going. That's the whole... Remember the Parthian shot? Just, don't even care. Shoot behind me. I don't care. Well, so the Spanish are bringing in cavalry. So Cortez has this pretty effective little army. They're all trained fighters. 600 men, like 50 horses, and then 16 cannon.
Oh, okay.
So
they brought their own cannons.
They brought their cannons.
How many boats did they take? Heavy.
So he had, I think, 3 or 4 ships in his flotilla. You can cram a lot of guys onto those ships when you're not going very far. But I think to actually travel overseas, you need like dozens of ships to move this kind of stuff, especially with horses.
Yeah.
But they've been moving troops, equipment, things like that there. So not all of his men came with him at once. Some were sent ahead. Some he recruited while he was in Cuba because people were like, new land, new opportunity. We're leaving Spain. Being peasant here sucks. Maybe it'll suck less there.
Yeah.
Only it sucked there too, and it was humid.
Turns out being a peasant anywhere sucks.
Just sucks. But for the lesser nobility, they get to live a lot better.
Right.
So he's got his team of basically adventurers. They think they're going to go out and make all this money. They make land. They're about to leave, and then the night before, the governor cancels the expedition. He says, "You're not doing it." And of course, why not? I don't like you.
Oh.
That's it.
Governor, what's his name?
Diego Velasquez. And then it's de Cuellar, but I don't know where.
So Cortez gets to this place.
He's in Havana.
Havana.
And he's told, nope.
No.
You stay here.
Okay.
Well, Cortez says, no, I'm going anyway. Gets on his ships, takes his men, and leaves.
Oh.
So it's a mutiny.
Hey.
The governor does not like this. So the first people that Hernan Cortez fights are the Spanish. Because the governor sends an army to fight him and make him, hold him accountable for mutiny. This is treason. I have the voice of the king.
So Cortez takes off, and right behind him,
another little fleet.
After him. Right?
And Cortez defeats this army and sends them packing or recruits them to his cause. Anybody who doesn't flee, he just hires them.
Sure.
He's like, all right. And now that we're in this place,
wherever we are, somewhere in the open waters of the Caribbean,
we're not leaving. So he starts kind of exploring. And Spanish exploration is, oh, I want that. Mine.
Gimme. Yeah.
But he has a different approach than most. Instead of just declaring total war on everybody, he starts recruiting locals.
Oh.
One of the first he recruits is a local woman who he then has a child with, and she's his interpreter.
Recruits.
He actually, it sounds like it was amicable.
Sounds mutual? Okay.
Sounds amicable. Because having had interpreters in Iraq, if your interpreter doesn't like you, they do not do a good job interpreting. So you want your interpreter to be on good terms with you. Right. So he maybe, there's not a huge amount of detail. He could have given her wealth. He could have given her safety from him. This could have been pretty close to...
Perhaps they were just charismatically in love.
And maybe there's a love story. Maybe. Because they did have a child together, although he never married her.
Oh, isn't that just even a more lovely love story?
Yeah, because, again, good Christian.
Yeah. But she wasn't.
But he's claiming to.
Sure.
And, so he had a child with this non-person.
Yep. Pope's words, not ours.
Pope's words, not mine. Nope. All people are people. Yep. That's just, if you have a problem with that, you have problems. Yeah. And so he starts to make diplomatic forays in amongst the locals. He's like, so, who's the big mover and shaker?
Yeah.
Who's the problem?
Who
do you guys have problems with?
Oh.
And he unites one tribe, another tribe. All these local governments and communities who don't like the Aztecs. Because the Aztecs are the big stick in the region. They just hit everybody and they extort them. They're an empire. Yeah. So they are strong. The Aztecs are the powerhouses of the region, but they have kind of fallen out of favor in recent years. Which brings us to the other half of our guys about to meet.
Oh boy.
So Cortez, finding out about the Aztecs, decides we're sticking around, and he sinks all his ships.
Oh.
Takes all the guns off them, takes all the supplies, and sinks the boats. We're not going anywhere until we're done.
Boy, that is decisive.
Yep. So nobody can leave. These guys are like, oh God, we're stuck here.
I guess we're staying here forever.
It's kind of there's the ocean, look, there's Savannah, it's very nice, and here's a jungle, we don't know where anything is, burn the ships. I am committed. Wow. It's a very hardcore move.
That is a no exit strategy.
This is a literally do or die scenario. Yeah. He's committed. Which, despite everything else he does, you have to admire either there's a difference between bravery and insanity. Sure. And it's defined by success.
Oh, okay. So he's right there on the edge.
So we're going to find out. Is he brave or is he stupid?
Because we've heard of his name, so...
So we've heard of him. So we can assume... We can consider this brave.
Let's find out.
So on the other side of this, we have Montezuma. It's Montezuma II, or Moctezuma. There are several different pronunciations and spellings depending on regional dialects, and really if the Spanish bothered listening to how it's actually pronounced. So they have Montezuma. He's become what the locals, what we refer to as an emperor. I'm not going to try to pronounce the words because I feel I'll butcher them and do a disservice to the Aztec language. It's a very interesting language, but it's really complex for the English tongue because there's lots of like TLs, like Tenochtitlan, Quetzalcoatl, like these
X's are very in places where X's shouldn't be.
Right, and these are just like approximations of it. And this is a pretty advanced society. So their entire city is built on a lake. Tenochtitlan is a series of causeways and bridges linking different plazas together with giant stone buildings and huge monuments and no horses, no beasts of burden that they're aware of to do all of this work. It's all jungle around them. It's not like they clear-cut everything. And they do have farms. They have irrigation. They're fairly advanced. They just don't have pants because it's hot. Like, they don't dress like the Westerners, so the Westerners immediately go, barbarian, savage. Oh, yeah. You look different. It's like, it's 600 degrees in a jungle. Why would you wear pants? That's how you get fungus and stuff. Like,
so they would just hang free? Were they wearing like
They wore like loincloths and stuff. They weren't like, but they weren't like, we got to cover our head to feet, and they had different styles and different functions, and they had, a hierarchy of priests. They had holy orders. They had merchants and traders. They had a warrior caste. They had nobles and peasants. So they have a lot of like relatable, understandable situations. And one of the issues that's going on right now, though, is Montezuma takes over, and his society is a meritocracy. If you're good at something, you can succeed, and that's what you do. Right. he gets rid of it.
Oh, he
got rid of it. He's like, no. If you're a noble, you're in charge. If you're a peasant, you just deal with it. Oh. The Europeans actually would have loved this guy if they'd have had a conversation with him, because that was his philosophy. So the church gets to do its own thing.
Yeah.
The nobles are in charge, and you peasants you listen to them.
Yeah.
And then he would use his warriors to kind of enforce that.
Keep that going.
Well, even the warriors don't really like this. A lot of people are like, we like the previous system a lot more.
So Montezuma put that system together?
Montezuma is kind of, he's taking...
How did he get into power?
Well, his daddy.
Oh, okay.
He's inherited the power.
Yeah, okay.
I believe. I'll double check. So write that down as a well, actually. Put that in my notes. How'd he get picked? Yeah, Montezuma. Emperor. Because I'm not sure if it's a system of. I mean, it's a meritocracy up until then, and then he's like, nope, no more. I don't like it. Nope. Mm-mm. So he starts securing his power base, and all the nobles in the area are like,
yeah, well, we enjoy this very much.
We like this a lot, and everybody else is like, so we're stuck being peasants? This is stupid.
Yeah. So
there's some tension there. And then he's, meanwhile, cracking down on the neighboring lands, and is generally being kind of a dick.
Yeah.
This is a nice way of putting it, I guess.
So, being a jerk of a leader crosses borders.
Yep. Yeah, we're not going to perpetuate a myth that only the Europeans were jerks.
That's right.
And all the
jerks can exist
native
anywhere.
Leaders were jerks. Are great. Yes. He's a bit of a tyrant.
Yeah.
He's not like murdering his own people, but he's murdering a lot of other people.
Sure.
The Aztecs did include like blood sacrifices in their religious ceremonies. It was usually captured prisoners.
Oh, yeah.
And he cut their head off or whatever and offer them up as sacrifice.
You want to sacrifice your own people.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah. So, and this was very similar to, sending your dangerous warriors over warriors and his, bloodletting tendencies at the other people.
Yeah.
Just push them out. Crazy guy's good at killing people. Go kill, but over there. It's kind of like Dexter.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, I know my son's a murderer.
Except they've trained them to be this way.
Yes. Right. Yeah. This isn't because of I mean, maybe they saw something horrible, but it was probably because somebody who was trained to do something horrible did something horrible. So you got Montezuma, who's kind of in this precarious position, but doesn't really care. He's the king. I live.
So it's not really precarious per se for him.
For him, but it is that there potentially is.
Sure.
He doesn't necessarily think so, but he's made his political power kind of not solid because the people aren't happy.
Okay.
And he's also alienated his neighbors to the point where here's this foreigner shows up and he's like, yeah, who's the guy that I need to punch in the face? Who's a big guard? Go beat his ass. And that's really what he does. So Montezuma, being the big man and being he has a sense of entitlement and power. And he's seen as almost a spiritual figure, too, because he's the emperor. He's closer to the gods. And that inflates the ego, just like a European king. I'm bigger and better than chosen.
Did they have a separate religion power structure there as well?
Yes, they had the high priests.
Okay.
And they were considered very, very powerful people. Yeah. But he was good with having them all kind of in order. He's working together for him.
Right. As long as you're working with me.
Yeah.
For me.
Yes. I mean, if he had tried to, overthrow the priesthood or something, then that would have caused serious problems for him. Probably got him killed. Because the priests, a lot of the time, could control where the warriors were doing. It was all a joint thing. If we're going to go to war, the gods have to bless us. The only way the gods are blessing you is if the priest says they are. Yeah. So you don't want to alienate those people. And there is a lot of respect for them, for the religious order. So Montezuma's not the most loved king, and he's alienated these people. Cortez, meanwhile, has landed, and he's taking advantage of this. Yeah. So he takes his little army of 600, and by the time he decides to march to Tenochtitlan to meet Montezuma, he wants to see this.
Yeah, who's this guy?
He's gathered thousands of locals to support him. He's got a proper, he doesn't just send an emissary. He goes to Montezuma. Montezuma, meanwhile, has sent out spies and scouts. He sent some emissaries to Cortez, and he invites Cortez to his city.
Oh.
Like, come on down.
It'll be nice. Come see the city.
Show me your weaknesses so I can exploit them later and murder you while you're walking through the jungle, which is precisely Montezuma's plan.
Aha.
He needs to know his strength of his enemy.
Yeah.
So he very brazenly just says, come on down. He hasn't fought the Spanish personally. He hasn't had to deal with this. The other tribes are like, have you seen what these guys... They have critters. They ride critters.
Did they? So now, when Cortez is befriending the local peoples, is he then training them and arming them?
No. He does not give them his toys.
Okay.
He figures that he's going to use them for cannon fodder.
Okay.
They'll do lots of the fighting, and his guys are going to work as a shock force. Just steel and brute strength and all this training. And these people are trained, too. I mean, these are not like... Well, farmers, we've got steel.
Sure.
But
they didn't have horses and armor.
But he also figured these guys are used to fighting people that have similar tactics.
Right.
I'm going to use that. I'll use that to my advantage. They've got archers. They've got javelins. They used their common weapon was called a macuito. And it's basically looks like a cricket bat with shards of obsidian jammed all along the edges like teeth. And the goal is you hit the guy with the edge of that and drag down. It's a combination of it's like a chainsaw without the spinning. And it's just savage and brutal.
A hand-powered chainsaw.
Yep. And considering that the armor that they wore was not really, they didn't really armor.
Yeah.
They wore they were the jaguar warriors who wore jaguar pelts, which is some protection, but it was mostly like a fear thing and I killed a jaguar and I'm wearing its pelt. That's how scary I am.
Yeah.
So they relied more on speed and maneuverability. They also had shields.
Okay.
I mean, so shield could stop that.
Yeah.
But if you're not wearing armor, you don't need metal. You don't need steel. And they did not use metal weapons. They used, like I said, obsidian, which is very, very, very sharp. And you're not really worried about long-term usage in bows and arrows. You just shoot and you don't care if you get the arrow back. You'll get more obsidian.
Right.
Shooting shards of glass at people. It's very dangerous. And when they're not wearing armor and not a lot of clothing, because it's a gajillion degrees, it works very well.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Tell the guy who shows up with armor.
Exactly. Which brings us to Cortez and his guys who are on horseback. They have steel. They have guns. They have cannon. And these are things that some of these people have seen.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's... Oh no, we've never encountered this before. How do we handle it?
Isn't there a story of some people that they saw ships on the horizon and didn't know what they were?
Yes.
So
there's
what's that? Is that this story?
This is linked to that, and then there's also the Mayflower thing was they saw the ships coming and they're like, it looks like clouds coming towards us and all of this. And those ships were taller. Yeah. Cortez's ships were smaller ones moving from Havana. But these people they know how they do sea travel to different islands and stuff. They have war canoes that are seaworthy. So they know who the Spanish are before they get there. Okay. They knew who the little islanders were. They know how things worked in Cuba. They've probably sent out spies and messengers.
The anecdotal story I had heard is that they did know who they were. That's why Montezuma invited them in. He's like, I'm not worried.
So there's this story that Montezuma thought Cortez was Quetzalcoatl, the god. And there's a famous image of Cortez puts on this robe, this fancy robe, and walks in with pistols in each hand and fires them off in the air, and they think he's the god of fire and thunder and the clouds, right? Yeah. This is Cortez's story. He wrote a letter to the king saying, they think I'm a god here.
Oh, so that might not be exactly how it
might not be exactly true because there's no Aztec record that backs that up. Oh. There aren't a lot of Aztec records, and we'll find out why.
Yeah, okay. But you'd think they would write down meeting a god.
They were like, oh, this is a big deal.
Make a note of that.
Yeah, and also their reaction to him would have been like, whatever you say goes, chief.
Yeah.
And this is not what happens.
No.
So Cortez takes his army, not just himself, his whole army of 600-ish conquistadors with cannons, slogging through this jungle, which I don't know if you've ever walked through the woods.
Yeah.
On a hot day, it's not great.
Probably sounds less exciting than it is.
Yep, but then make it a steaming jungle, throw on steel armor, leather boots.
Drag a cannon.
Yeah,
it sounds great.
Sounds like an episode in Sucking. No. I just no. I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So some respect has to be given.
The cannon's also classically good for off-roading.
It's got its big, heavy, maybe not perfectly round wooden wheels.
Yep. Just drag that cannon.
And it's, cannons are light.
Yeah.
They're made for taking down stone buildings at the time.
Sure.
Plus, gunpowder.
I gotta drag all the cannonballs along with you too.
Each shot weighs, 4 to 8 pounds. You got 100 of them for each cannon, maybe.
Stacking those is tricky.
No.
Yeah.
Try stacking bowling balls, folks.
Yeah,
But little ones. Take about the size of a softball, but make it iron.
All right, so welcome to the jungle.
Welcome to the jungle.
We have fun and games and cannonballs.
You gonna die because this is an army. So,
Yes.
Cortez and Montezuma, big guy. I mean, Cortez is like a nobody, socially speaking. He's a lesser noble. He's a knight. Nobody cares about him.
This is to be his big day, though.
But this is his big day. He
Oh,
sees opportunity, and he's hungry. He's going for it, right? Which is why a lot of people think he's like this hero, right?
I can imagine that morning he gave himself a pep talk.
He probably did.
This is your day today.
This is your day. This is where they die. It's the combination of the 300 and Braveheart and the Wolf of Wall Street all combined. And let's do all the drugs and kill all the people for Jesus.
Do it, Cortez.
Because it's that Shia LaBeouf. Do it.
Hernando.
And he's ready. And so he swaggers in, and he very well may have tried to make himself seem big and fancy and fired off the guns to try to look like a god and be amazing. And Montezuma does not care, it seems. Like, judging from the reaction. Because what Montezuma does is he offers him a gift. He gives him an Aztec calendar, which is a disc made of gold and silver.
Oh, and as we all
you
know,
can move it. It's this intricate little device.
Yeah, but it runs out 2021. No, 2012. I think it ran out.
2040. Yes, yeah. But there's like a couple. There's also like a 2047 one.
Oh, well, we'll be okay for a couple of years then.
Got a little bit to go. Well, yep. That's the Mayan calendar you're thinking of. The Aztec calendar is different.
Got it. But
yeah, it's this cool little disc thing.
Sure.
Cortez is like, that's neat. Later on, he literally melts it down, turns it into coin.
What a jerk.
What a jerk, right?
Did he bring anything?
No.
Just guns?
Just guns and a bad attitude. Well, he walks in like he's the king, right? He's a lot of gusto and stuff. And Montezuma gives this big welcome. Now, Tenochtitlan is a massive city. Maybe 100,000 people live there at this time. And these are the Aztecs, unlike like the Incans who are builders, and the Mayans who have their own culture, and they're more agrarian. The Aztecs are very famous for being warriors.
Yeah,
like, these are a tough, brutal people when you make them mad. Now, they've also got this beautiful architecture. So these guys are going like, I thought these people lived in mud huts. This is nice.
I mean, we do out there, but not in the big city.
Because we don't. This is a city. If you've only got mud, you make a hut out of it. Also, it's a jungle. Mud would not be a good hut-making tool, Yeah. So they've got a lot of stone. They've got these giant temples, these big ziggurats is what they're called, where it just looks like piles of stone as like a pyramid without the smoothing. Aliens made those too.
Aliens, or it's just a pyramid is a more logical shape to make
shapes and build big things.
So you stack your cannonballs too, kids.
Yep. If you don't, very good point. If you got a stack of cannonballs, you can't go out, and you can't go straight up.
Pyramid.
You go in.
Just like the aliens.
Just like the aliens who just beamed it down. It just landed ships. I saw Stargate. These are all just ships. Or landing platforms for ships. So anyway. So they've met on this causeway. Montezuma says, come on in, welcome. This is my city. And his plan is to awe them.
Yeah.
Not, oh, look at the puppy. Oh, look at this. And Cortez's men are like, this is nice. Did he just give you a giant disc of gold? And Cortez is like, oh yeah. They're like, oh my God.
We love gold.
How much treasure is here? Now, Montezuma does this to placate them. Here's some gold. And he gives them more gifts. He just to show how rich he is.
Sure.
Because they've got gold and silver all over the place. They don't care. They've got mines and wealth. And he's an emperor. He's living large. He's got the fruits of centuries of conquest and warfare, and this is the epitome of his culture. So he's showing off.
And the value of gold to them is less so.
It's not as, I mean, it's still got value,
Yes.
but it's not as important as like there's not the avarice, because they use it. They don't have like a minting system, they don't have a coin system, so they use it for decoration, and everybody's got it. Yeah. They're just wearing it.
Gold's still very nice
because it's nice. It's got a very useful quality. That's why gold it was originally valuable, is because you can make anything out of it, and it doesn't corrode. So I mean, they live in a jungle. Everything corrodes in the jungle. That's why one of the reasons probably why if they found iron, they would be like, this is crap.
Oh, sure.
It just rusts and it's junk. Why would we use that? Bronze would have been useful, but they didn't really use that either. But gold, very useful. Silver, harder to work with, but still pretty. So they've got nice metals. They've got valuable stones. They value pretty things just like everybody else values pretty things. But that's less important to them.
Just like crows.
Right. Right. Humans are kind of like magpies and crows.
Yeah.
Shiny.
Well, Cortez's men know that in Europe, gold is the key to power because that gives you wealth. And wealth lets you buy land and buildings and ships and soldiers and prostitutes, which is frowned on, but not really. They don't care. You can buy anything, right? Or you pay for another conquest to go steal more gold, right?
Yeah.
Conquer more people, fight more stuff, buy fancier armor that maybe doesn't melt in the sun, kind of maybe die. Lighter but stronger.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a conversation they'll have. Can we have armor that's lighter but does the same thing?
Because this stuff is really heavy.
This sucks. Also, who decided to wear leather? Like this? Ooh. This uncomfortable. But I mean, leather boots though.
Okay.
Keep your feet.
Leather. It also feels like a weird thing to protect. Where'd you get that leather from? From an animal I stabbed?
I stabbed it.
Oh, right through the leather of it?
Yep. Not a great armor choice, which is why in the movies, whenever they show like the Vikings especially, wear like leather armor, they didn't.
No.
It wasn't a thing. They wore metal. Like our leather is crap for that.
Yeah.
They use it as like a backing to put stuff on, or to put over the metal to keep it water resistant. But it wasn't really used until the wars that we were talking about between the Dutch and the Spanish.
Yeah.
They wore like leather coat because that'll stop a light slash from the sword, and it might stop a musket ball at long range. Wear a thick enough leather coat. But yeah, so the Spanish, they've got this heavy armor though, and the Aztecs are like, well, we don't wear that, but you don't have armor here and here. Right here.
In the face area.
The face area. So we know we got some stuff for that. So they're going through the city. Montezuma's obviously watching them. He's got his people watching them, gives a big welcome. He wants it to look like a big fancy thing, which is probably why Cortez was like, oh my God, I'm so fancy. Sure. But it's really, look at the splendor of my city, and also look at these idiots coming into the middle of my town like they own the place. We're going to kill them all when they leave.
No.
So Cortez's guys, meanwhile, are seeing all of this wealth, and they're just like,
this is what we were promised.
We were not placated at all. Now everything he said is true.
Oh boy, city of gold.
This is literally what people talked about when they came to North America and the pilgrims and everything. Like, there's so much gold because of this moment. Because of all the wealth that they're seeing here, is this giant, beautiful city with stuff that they can just take. It's just here. And they don't have walls here. They have some fortification, but not really because it's in the middle of a lake.
Yeah.
So the way to get in is you have to go across this giant causeway. And that's the only way in and out of the city. Or you take a canoe. But I don't know if you know this, but the waters in South America have stuff in them that can kill you.
Yeah. Creatures and such.
So it's like going in Florida.
Okay.
Don't swim in a lake in Florida.
Crocodiles, piranhas.
There's stuff.
Anacondas.
In South America, these are deadly critters.
Yeah.
You go out in the woods and you just might die. That's why
they probably didn't need a wall then.
They don't. It's just like people invade. We'll see you coming, and then we'll just meet you on the causeway and kill you. Meet us on a bridge. Meet us after school at the flagpole. Meet us on the bridge at dawn. We'll kill you. It's fine. And it's a sizable army. It's not like he's got his army all over the place. They start here, they go there, they kill the things, they come back. Problem solved. Well, Montezuma's having these feasts celebrating with the conquistadors, trying to get the lay of the land. And a report comes in to Cortez that his guys have been fighting against let's get the name right, the Totonacs, or Totonacs. I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced. But they're another group of people.
Sound like an a cappella band.
And these are a group of people that aren't pro-Spanish. These are not like, yeah, we'll team up with the Spanish and we'll help them fight the Aztecs, because that won't come back and bite us in the butt. Yeah. They're like, no, this is a problem. They're going to get worse. Yeah. So the Aztecs, they're not all, constantly answering the king. This is like a lord of the Aztecs decides, yeah, I'm going to help these guys out. They're my allies. And they fight the Spanish. Cortez gets a report. The Aztecs are murdering our men on the coast.
Oh.
And he immediately, in the middle of this feast, he and his guys seize Montezuma and hold him hostage.
The actual guy?
They immediately just grab him and seize the emperor in his own house.
While he's feeding them
dinner. He's in the middle of drinking, which, by the way, he drank hot chocolate. That was his preferred drink. It's a lot different than ours. It's more bitter and mostly just the beans ground up and liquid. Okay. So it'd be kind of like coffee.
Like a coffee, yeah.
Like a coffee. But it's thicker. Okay. And he drank, that was considered a holy, if you drank that, you were fancy pants too.
Warmed as well?
Yep, heated up.
So he's having a nice spicy cup of cocoa?
Yeah, if you've ever had they have like Mexican chocolate. Yeah. It has a little pepper in it usually. It's spicy. Yeah. This is a liquid version.
So he's just having a great time.
He's just chilling. I mean, he is planning to probably kill the Spanish if they're a threat, which he immediately goes, guns, armor, horse, this could be a problem. Yeah. But the guy doesn't really plan. He doesn't think an enemy's just going to do something like that. You don't
in the middle of dinner.
You don't do that. If you're going to murder somebody, you go and you tell them you're going to murder them. You give them a warning. You say, Aztecs are coming, hide your stuff, or surrender. Yeah. Give us 5 slaves to kill and you can stop.
But instead, let's have dinner.
Let's have dinner. So Cortez is sitting there with his fully armored conquistadors, and these guys, again, are professional soldiers. Everything is a threat. Everything is killable. Everything is trying to kill you, so they are hair trigger, and they have steel versus no armor and wooden and stone weaponry.
Yikes.
And they're skilled. That's the other thing, too, is to factor in. These are skilled fighters versus skilled fighters. So, again, if you're really skilled and they're very skilled, but you've got better stuff.
Yep.
So he has his elite cadre of conquistadors around him, and they kidnap the emperor. And they're like, we're going to kill him. Pay us.
So where did they take him?
To the whole city. He just said they kidnapped the emperor, fortified the palace.
So we're here.
Yeah, they're in his palace, and they're like...
A hostage situation.
And they're in the middle of his city.
Yeah.
And all the people are like, they took the emperor. And then there starts to be this pushback of, but he's a dick.
Uh-oh.
Remember how he made the nobles more powerful and he made us crap? And they're all like,
no.
Yeah, he kind of sucks, doesn't he?
Oh, no. That's the last thing you want to hear is that.
And the emperor's like.
As a hostage emperor.
And then, the emperor's like, my people will butcher you for this.
Uh-oh.
So
the one thing, when you're a hostage emperor, you don't want the news to spread and for them to say, and. What's he done for me lately?
What have you done for me lately, Monty? Okay. What have you done for me lately?
Go on, Monty.
So Cortez says, I don't speak the language super well, and they respect you because you're the emperor. I want you to go out on the balcony and tell your people to let us go.
Uh-oh.
And he does, and they throw rocks and spears at him.
At Montezuma?
Because they think he's betrayed them, and they think that he's in the pocket of Cortez.
This is going worse and worse for Montezuma.
This guy sold us out. He let these jerks come into our city, just move in, and then he's dumb enough to let them capture him in his own house, surrounded by his own soldiers. Now what do we do?
Now he's up there telling us.
And now he's telling us, you need to pay the man to let me go.
Oh, man.
And they're like, no! So they throw stuff at him, and he gets injured. And there's 2 versions of what happened here.
Uh-oh.
The Spanish say he was killed by this, which gives them a pretext for violence. The Aztecs say the Spanish murdered him after this because they realized he was useless as a hostage.
Oh, no.
But first they baptized him.
Oh,
and
that's even
then
worse.
They murdered him.
All right, you got to keep talking. I forgot I just saw someone pull
Saw
in the
someone pull in,
driveway.
you got to think.
I do have a thing. Yeah, I'll write down. You keep talking.
I'm gonna keep talking.
I'll
This is gonna
jump
be
in.
weird. This is gonna be weird.
That's all right.
I'm gonna finish my coffee. So we've got Montezuma beaten up by the locals, his own people, that he thinks these guys are gonna support me, and they don't. Now a wounded Montezuma falls back into his area where he's, with the Spanish, and they either Spanish slit his throat and cut their losses, or he's killed by the injuries from these people throwing rocks and detritus and spears in some cases. There's different reports of what happened. And of course, Cortez is like, I'm surrounded. This isn't good. I need to leave. These people are mad, but they don't have a leader, and time is going to move against me. So Cortez, and I realize as I'm talking about this, I'm going to have to catch Mike up on what we're saying, but I don't care. I'm going to keep rolling. So Cortez gets his guys together and says, we need to get out of the city, and we need to get out of here now. They've been looting and stealing stuff. Oh, Mike's coming back.
No, sorry.
You're okay?
Yeah, it's all good.
It's all good?
I double booked things. My apologies.
That's okay. How dare you, sir?
I don't know, but it's something increased viewers because
You got
of
to because you left.
that. Perfect.
It was like, come and watch this idiot talk to himself, and now he's going to have to retell the story.
All right.
I get 2 minutes back on the clock.
Oh, good.
So, excuse me. So Montezuma's dead.
Oh.
He either dies from his wounds of the people going, get that guy out of here, he sucks, or Cortez just slit his throat and was like, I'm cutting our losses. Literally.
Yeah, this ain't working right.
So Cortez gets his guys together and says, so that didn't go as planned,
Oops.
and we are now besieged within this palace.
Wow, nothing's going as planned.
But there's no organization right now. There's chaos.
Yeah.
They're like, well, is the high priest in charge? Are Montezuma's kids in charge? Are the chief warriors in charge? Who's the boss? And also, there's this army in our town, and what do we do about this? There's maybe 5,000 people. I think the local, not his whole army was admitted, but a big chunk of it. So Cortez is like, we need to get out of here.
Yeah.
I know you guys have been looting the palace, and you're weighed down with gold and silver and jewels and treasure.
This looks bad, but...
I need you to put it all down,
Oh, no.
and we're going to leave. But bring all your weapons, because this is going to get bad fast. So that night, rather than let the city organize, Cortez leads this crazy run through the city where he just makes basically an old school Greek phalanx of his steel-clad soldiers and his cavalry, and just charges through the whole city. Anything that comes near them, they cut it down and just keep going.
Wow.
They leave behind their cannons. They leave behind their loot, their baggage train, everything. Anything they don't need, they get their weapons, their armor, some food, and just charge. It is one of the craziest escapes because it's a city of like 100,000 people that just descends on this army it's not like they have machine guns and bombs and grenades.
They just have people.
They just have people. And you can't use guns because guns take way too long to reload. So they maybe get a shot off each, or a pistol shot here or something there. And pistols are not common. They're big. That was specifically for like a cavalry weapon, so you could have a gun. So they maybe get a few shots off, but mostly it's hand-to-hand fighting, carving their way through this city. They leave hundreds of dead behind them as they cut their way across, and then they have to get to the causeway, which is the only way out. This gives them an advantage because, one for one, the Spanish are better because they have steel armor. They're much more
once they can get on that, they're...
So they get to the causeway, have this crazy rear guard action where they're just falling back and trying to hit people as they leave.
We're going.
And they get out, they get into the jungle. Somehow they aren't just massacred on the spot, and they retreat. It's this wild run through the jungle back to their base where he burned all the ships, which they can't get on and take to get away. They're stuck.
What have we done?
So Cortez is like, well, that was fun, guys.
I guess. Get on the ships we sank.
We're not leaving.
No, we're not.
We're going to figure this out. Meanwhile, the Aztecs are like, so our emperor's dead, and they say the Spanish killed him. And they say he baptized him first.
Oh, yeah.
This is a huge no-no. It was sacrilege.
Yeah.
Because the emperor is considered a holy figure. It'd be like if you
walked into the Pope and said, "You are now a Muslim," and then murdered him.
Yeah, that wouldn't go over well.
It wouldn't go over well
Have
at
to
all.
get out of the Vatican real quick.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And Tenochtitlan is also a holy city.
Yeah.
So this is not good for the Spanish. They pissed off the whole Aztec Empire. They start sending out messengers all over the place. It takes a while, they're on foot.
Yep.
But they know all the paths through their land. And they start gathering troops. Cortez, because he's nothing if not ballsy, says, "I'm the governor now."
Okay.
He goes.
Yeah, okay.
He goes to the Spanish capital on the mainland and takes it over with his beat up force and all the natives that he's allied with. Seizes their arms and army and says, look at me.
Oh, no.
I'm the captain now.
This doesn't work
He
well.
says, "I speak with the authority of the king, and the Aztecs are coming."
I don't know why they're so upset.
I don't know why they're so mad. I don't know why they're so mad.
They seem very angry.
They're very upset, and I don't know why.
I don't know. It's best I should be in charge.
Let's go kill them all.
Okay.
So he gets the army and then goes right back to the city and sacks it. He assaults it, and it is considered one of it's just this savage fight because it's very much like his retreat, but this time he's coming in.
Yeah, there's more people.
And there's more. He's backed up by 10 to 20,000 natives. Because the people don't like the Aztecs.
Yeah.
They've been bloody-handed and savage to their all of these smaller groups. And we see the same thing happen in Europe several times where it's like, you were a bully. Let's all kick his ass.
Yeah, when you're king, you got to be good.
You got to be better about ruling. And Montezuma, he's gone. So the Aztecs kind of scrambled. They've been trying to gather their forces. But Cortez just comes right back to the center of the empire, which is completely unheard of for these people. That's not how you fight.
We kicked him out.
We kicked him out. We were going to kill him, and now he's back. But because they didn't, and it's like so many times in war, they didn't follow him, and they didn't finish him off. They thought, this gives us time to gather an army, and then we're going to go to the coast and finish him off.
Yeah.
What they probably would have been best doing is guerrilla warfare, hunting him bit by bit, picking off guys throughout the jungle. He would have been screwed. He didn't have his guns. His guys were exhausted. The cavalry probably would have just taken off and left the infantry behind, and they would have just gotten cut down in the jungle. But instead, they let him go to try to, because it's total chaos. They don't have any leaders to say, yeah, go after him.
Right. We're just glad to get him out of the city.
Whew, okay, we got breathing space.
Yeah.
Then he comes back with this much larger army. His soldiers are fresh again, and they bring more guns this time. And it's this savage fight on this bridge where it's kind of like the 300, the Thermopylae battle, where we have this elite force in the front and this just huge column of enemy soldiers coming at them, but they can't surround them, so they just have to fight the elite guys all day, and one for one, they're better.
Yeah.
So the Spanish have like a center core of the army where here's the steel, and the allied locals are just sending in support. They get on canoes and start throwing javelins and shooting arrows from the sea or from the lake. Yeah. There's this brutal lake fight between all these people who are skilled at fighting like that. So it's the Aztecs versus all of these other tribes, and it's just a brutal massacre. And it's savage on both sides. Like the Spanish take the least of the hit,
right? Because
they have the least guys, and also because they are just kind of this
concentrated mass.
They're staying right here. They're staying in formation. They don't want to move too much. But that's not to say the Aztecs don't know how to deal with steel. A lot of people think like, oh, they had steel, it's an instant win. But the Aztecs were used to fighting. They were starting to figure it out. And like I said, your face.
Yep.
Okay, well, I don't hit the hard parts. So they use very similar tactics to everybody else. Shoot enough arrows at them.
Yeah, that should do it.
Use some dirty fighting, maybe. Maybe there's poisons involved.
Throw some sand in their eyes.
Sand in their eyes. Hit the mock whittle right here in the joint in the armor. You've done it. And also, a great remedy for armor was a club. In Europe,
you can still feel
you couldn't really use a steel sword against a breastplate. That wasn't effective. You'd use a mace.
Oh, yeah.
That'll still knock you down.
That's all you need.
And then you use something long and pokey and stab into the weak spots. So that's what they were doing. So it's this very savage face-to-face fight. And eventually, the Spanish and their allies win. They sack the city, they loot it. And then that's kind of the
beginning of the end for the Aztecs.
Oh, no.
So from the meeting of Montezuma and Cortez
very badly
in November in 1519, by August of 1521, the Aztec Empire is gone.
Yikes.
Less than 2 years, they have just annihilated this. Well, actually, yeah. Less than 2 years, they've like sacked this arm. The whole empire is subservient to Spain. And what that means for them now is all of their wealth, the Spanish get.
Goes away.
And when we talked about like the 30 Years' War, the Spanish had all this money. A fifth of their wealth came from this.
This one thing.
This one thing caused this because the Spanish then go, look how much money there is.
Yeah.
Now Cortez thinks I'm going to be the boss. Because look what I did.
I did start all this.
And they go, you committed mutiny and you killed a bunch of Spaniards to do it. Also, you're a lesser noble.
You'll never be anybody.
They make him a marquis, which is not a sign in this case. It's a higher rank than he was. But he's hoping to be like the Vicomte is the French. He's hoping to be in charge.
Be somebody.
I want to be something. And they give it to a guy who was not a conqueror.
Poor Cortez.
Who was a higher ranking noble and he was an administrator. So Cortez just basically throws down his sword, says, screw this, and goes home.
Oh.
6 years later, he dies of natural causes after all of his conquering. I mean, this is 20 years.
Sure, right.
20 years after he gets like this promotion. So he stays there 20 years beating the snot out of the locals and also other Spaniards because he just gets mad.
And ends up just having to go home.
And then he just goes home in the end. And he hasn't really earned a ton other than his name has given him some clout and given him fame. And he's also made the Spanish crown feared because there's this myth of the limitless wealth of this new world that the Spanish have an iron grip over.
So he didn't do nothing.
He didn't do nothing, but he was never adequately awarded according to him because he did do all the work. And by all the work, we mean basically genocide. Because by the time this whole war is done, 1,800 Spanish have died. 200,000 Aztecs are dead.
Wow.
There's a slight difference.
That is a big difference.
It's a slight difference. Now, this is not also counting how many of the natives died that helped him.
Yeah.
Probably tens of thousands. Because the war was just savage. And the Spaniards, only 1,000 of them died in combat. The rest died from illness.
Because they don't know how to work the jungle.
They don't know how to do the jungle. But then, who knows how many of the locals die from something like smallpox, which is another way that Tenochtitlan got hammered.
It's always the civilians.
Because in the short period of time that he was in Tenochtitlan, they spread smallpox. His guys were sick, some of them, and the locals got it, and they had no natural immunity. This is pre-vaccinations. They have nothing. They've never encountered this illness. Flies. So their army that they're hoping to build up is actually smaller than when the Spanish left. It just spirals for them. Meanwhile, you have, because of how successful Cortez is, more guys doing the exact same thing. And in a short span of less than, say, 100 years, the Incan Empire is gone. It is completely obliterated. And they were not like the Aztecs. These were not like, take people and sacrifice them type warriors. These guys carved farms into the Andes Mountains with sticks. Like they built roads.
This is
like that rivaled Rome. This is a great empire.
This is the Incas, so we're moving on, and we need to end because we're over time.
Okay, but we gotta finish off because there's a long-term thing about this, and we talked about how there's this doctrine of discovery that was passed by this interpretation. This has ramifications for America all the way into 1823. So the Spanish were basically told they aren't people. In 1823, the United States Supreme Court, in the case of Johnson versus McIntosh, was to kind of determine how to treat natives during westward expansion. And the judge said that this principle of discovery gave European nations an absolute right to New World lands. So they used previous conquests to justify taking all of the natives and saying, you have a right to occupancy, but not a right to ownership. We have that right because we said so. Because we said so. And they systematically uproot these people, and millions of them die over the course of time.
And this is a long-term effect where we still see it, because just down the road we have the Oneida Reservation.
Yeah.
Those people started in New York.
Mm.
Now they have a little tiny spot in New York, a little tiny spot in Wisconsin, and all of these tribes have been scattered.
Wow.
It was less, if well done and not well done. It was a less organized and much more slaughter in the Spanish conquered lands, because slavery was okay.
Well, I don't like how this one ended at all.
They enslaved everybody, and millions died. Almost the entire Aztec population is gone. So today, the Hispanic people of Mexico are largely interbred between the Spanish conquerors and the local people. So you have the mestizo people, who are like the traditional indigenous folk, mixed with the Spanish. And to this day, who speaks Aztec? Who speaks Mayan? You might find 5 people who know the language still. It's just gone. And it's because of this meeting. It's almost exclusively because of how this went down.
And he still didn't think he did anything.
And he still didn't think he got what he deserved,
Yeah.
which would have been a very slow and painful death. But the big perpetrator of all of this was that this Pope, Alexander VI, said, they don't count as people, so it's okay.
We're going to look into him.
And this is that using a bad thing or a singular event to justify future acts, which we've seen throughout history.
Yeah.
Well,
It's never a good
they
idea.
did it, and even though it wasn't right, they did it.
They sure got away with it.
So then we're going to use that as an excuse to do it too. And it happened for 400 years throughout the North and South America.
All right, we are over time.
It's wild.
I have
We're
to wrap
way
up.
over time, and he's got a thing to
I got a thing
do.
to do.
But I got minutes back because you ran away.
Next week, we'll be discussing the Council of Clermont.
Council of Clermont.
1095.
Yep.
Something in France.
The middle of France.
The middle of France.
Why does it matter? What does it matter?
We'll find out.
All right. Hope
Right.
you guys enjoyed this one.
I enjoyed it. Sorry I got to rush out away.
Yep.
All right. See you later.
Bye,
Thank you.
guys.
Bye.